what they said might be ridiculous, but the point is still that you are antagonizing somebody. That is true. It is inflammatory to them, which was the claim I made.
Anything can be inflammatory to anybody. Okay, like, here I'm curious. Okay, because this is like always the meat of the issue. And then Katie. Okay, and then Katie go. Okay, is there an example of me being like actually like hateful, or is it just like me being mean? Like, is there?
I don't.
Okay, so all of this.
That you being mean is hateful.
Like, the descriptive reality aligns with my view. If you look at him, he's horrifically mean and rude.
See, I really hope that leaning into the meme is going to feel good after this conversation. I sincerely do. I wish I could lean into the memes more.
Which meme are we leaning into? I
just don't know how to lean into a feminazi bitch more. It's
you were watching the conversation that I had with like Vivian and Not So Erudite, and your chat was like calling me soy while I spoke a lot, so I added soy to my like VTuber.
Oh, nice.
Going on, Destiny?
Ready? I mean, we're waiting for you, I think, right?
I believe so. I thought we had booked 6 guests. But apparently we only did 5.
Do you want me to? I think Chud Logic is supposed to be here, right? Is he not on today, or?
Maybe it's Doobie?
Sometimes, it's wild. Have you ever had a person that you respected but wanted to shoot at the same time? That's not an actual threat, by the way, but in a video game.
It's all good. I'm used to it at this point. Don't worry.
Are you referring to Chud there, Fanatiq? He frustrated you that much?
No, because I said someone I respect. But all right, so we're gonna open up the show. And let's start with our opening. So here it is. Look, everyone, thank you guys so much for being on the Fanatiq show. I'm really working really hard to like try to improve things and make things as great as they possibly can and really match the vision that I had for the show. So I've taken the time to carefully speak to each person. Rhizome, however you pronounce your name, our conversation Rhizome. It got off the rails a little bit, and I didn't actually have the specific conversation with the piece that I was expecting to have with you, and that's my fault. But I know you understand my intention and what the goal is of the panel. So that's really good because you called me out on that. So with that being said, I'm hearing background noise coming in from someone.
Oh no.
I'm hearing that too.
My fault.
Katie's having some weird feminazi mic issues.
Feminazi audio.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it. We got it fixed. All right. So listen. Destiny is somewhat of a polarizing figure in Twitch. Some will testify to his graciousness, while others decry his community, DGG, and his actions as harmful, transphobic, misogynistic, and even racist. Destiny has no problem defending himself and his action, and has said that he would do so gracefully without blood sports today on the Fanatiq panel. As such, we're here to first discuss him, then broaden the conversation to general platform responsibility as a whole. I want to address the viewers really quick and say that I have heard complaints about my interjections. Last week, panel was completely off the rails. Before we could even finish opening statements, someone was complaining that there wasn't any debate. This panel is not about debate. This panel is about conversation and discussion. While there are people on different sides of this issue, I'm hoping we're able to openly discuss these positions and come to a deeper understanding. If anyone can handle this and actually not go crazy, I believe it's Destiny. Thing is, I'm moderating. I don't want to have to interject. I hope you guys can moderate yourselves. If 2 people are in a meaningful back and forth, please don't interject. Let them have it. If I'm talking, you don't. I'll try to keep it to a minimum, but if I feel the need to speak, please feel the need to listen. I've taken the time to talk to every single person here to ensure they know the environment and what is expected, and I do expect this to go smoothly. Lastly, on the nigga panel last night with Trihex, Signatural, Prime Kai's, myself, and Black American Made, we were able to have a round table discussion with literally no moderation, and that went freaking swimmingly. Is that just because it was all niggas? I'd like to think not. Let's do this one right, okay? So, opening it up, in a previous conversation, STV Philly and I discussed his grievances with Destiny. I can't speak for Destiny, but Destiny can speak for himself. And this is a forum that I believe is perfect to be able to do so. STV, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so, well, let me start out by saying hello to everybody. And Fanatiq, to you especially for inviting me on. I appreciate it. Hello to Destiny. Hello to Rhizome, Katie, and section. How are you, everybody? I'm familiar with everybody here, so that's a good thing. So I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because we got a lot of people here. So I'm gonna start out by saying that I used to watch a lot of Destiny back in like 2017, 2018, and not knowing much about his personal life, he's somebody who I would say could communicate his positions clearly and effectively, and can argue with some of the most arrogantly wrong people on the internet, like Nick Fuentes, No Bullshit, Eric Stryker, Sargon of Akkad, JonTron, all those people. My issue with Destiny is not so much his streams, although we disagree on a lot when it comes to race and labor issues. More of my grievances come with his behavior on Twitter. Not only his behavior and his community's behavior, but I'm talking to you, Destiny, so we're gonna keep it to you for the moment. So these are arguments most people have heard before, weaponizing his community against smaller accounts, using racially insensitive language towards minorities, and negatively essentializing groups of people. Those are my main, I would say, issues. There are more, but we have limited time, so I'll keep it to those three for now. More specifically, the end of last year, that whole interaction with the girl who said she was stealthed, and then Destiny, you had tweeted out some things that I believed, in my opinion, were victim blaming. Let's just put it like that. Some people say it's rape apology. Some people use other language. The language I like to use, because that's what first came to my mind, was victim blaming. I've heard you have these conversations with other people, so I'm sure this is not a surprise to you that people feel this way, me specifically. And yeah, I think for right now, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Destiny, it's all yours. You can respond to that however you want. We're not going to go through everyone's intros. You can go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, I feel like if it's going to be about me, I feel like everybody should have an intro, right?
Well, it depends, because so what happened is that different people had different positions and like different mentalities. So I figured you could talk to him a little bit, and then afterwards, then Soy-section has an entirely different position and for entirely different reasons.
Jesus, now this feels like a fucking like an intervention.
Well, you did say that you can handle it. You said that you didn't mind defending yourself in that regard. Don't you know what I mean? It's all yours. Go ahead.
All right. Well, hold on, Dustin. Let me just put it like this. Okay. Some people say you should have been banned off Twitch. Some people say you shouldn't. My position is, since Twitch didn't give a direct reason, they're very vague, and they're very opaque with how they're handling this situation. For that reason, I don't think you should have been banned. But however, I am not surprised, because I was telling this to Fanatiq on stream the other day. At like the end of last year, you don't know me at all, but we have some mutual acquaintances, let's say. So towards the end of last year, I was messaging some people that I felt you were friendly with, and telling them, I don't know Destiny. I can't talk to him. I like the guy. I want to see him, continue, but I think, his behavior is going to get him, in trouble. I think some of the things that he's saying are intentionally inflammatory. My frustration comes in because I know how smart you are and intelligent you are, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. You know all this, so maybe all this was you knew it was gonna happen, or you kind of didn't care, or what. So maybe that's the case, but yeah, some of the specific tweets that you deleted last year, I felt could get you into trouble, and it didn't happen, but something happened, a couple weeks ago that did. So my position is that I'm not surprised, although I can't say I agree with the ban because they haven't given a specific reason, so we don't even know what it's for. So how can I agree or disagree?
Sure, I understand. So I guess because I don't want to have a 50-minute discussion with everybody in their opening statements. I'll say that I defend all of my behavior on Twitter. I think people are huge fucking babies. I think that it's impossible to have any type of conversation these days without everybody like instantaneously screeching like victim blaming, racism, transphobia, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that for going forward, I want to set a higher standard for what we call racist or transphobic or misogynistic. And I don't think that like one-off comments on me being mean to particular people on Twitter, where I'm not even talking about whole groups of people, I don't think that rises to that level. But I imagine we'll probably get more into specifics later on in this panel, so that's what I'll say. Yeah, and also in terms of, because you mentioned deleting tweets, a lot of people say that I delete tweets to hide from accountability. Everything that I say on the internet gets infinitely screenshotted almost instantly. I'm pretty sure there are some accounts that exist that are dedicated to backing up every tweet that I make. The only reason why I delete tweets is because theoretically, the person on Twitter that says that they're not me might be banned. So anytime I leave past tweets up, people will just randomly spam report all of my tweets, and there's a higher chance of the account getting banned. That's why those tweets get deleted. As long as I'm trying to like hide from accountability. I never like deny. There's never been a time where I've been on a panel where I've like denied something I've tweeted or I've tried to like get away from it. I just do it so that my old tweets don't get spam reported. But yeah. But
okay. Well, look. STV, do you have any more specifics? Like, do you want to go into like specific that thing?
Yeah. So okay. So we had a whole conversation about this the other day, and I felt that Fanatiq was still manning all of your positions and giving you the most charitable, or giving me the most charitable interpretation he could. He could, and I told him as much. He disagreed with me, obviously. Okay, so this isn't like a prolonged back and forth between me and you, since there are other people here. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna like read, I guess, like the ones with the most that caught my attention the most. Okay. Okay. So the girl had tweeted out that, you know, she felt awkward about saying something about the guy stealthing her, and then people hopped in with their opinions. But your main point was that if you don't have enough agency to speak up for yourself or to say something in the moment, once you've noticed somebody was stealthing you, then you should not be engaging in casual sex.
Yeah.
And my thing was that if you had said it like that, or if you had, you know, put it like that, me personally, I wouldn't have had an issue. I'm sure somebody would have found the issues with something, but me personally, I wouldn't have had an issue. My issue came, and the reason I use the term victim blaming is because of this specific tweet. You said, okay, so you were responding to somebody who said awkward basically just means weird. And you said, quote, if this is your reaction multiple times, then stop having sex. Why would you subject yourself to potential rapes that happen just because you feel awkward? Question mark. Now, stealthing can happen. Women can do it. Men can do it. Gay men can do it. Stealthing happens in a variety of different ways. And from what I could gather, this woman found out after the fact. Now, here's a question I do have for you before I go into this. You know way more about this than me. Obviously, you were engaged with this. Did this particular lady know beforehand, or did she catch the guy like in the act, or did she find out afterwards that
with
he had selfed her?
The initial tweet, it was a little bit ambiguous, leaning towards it sounded like she saw it happen but didn't say anything. But later on, she clarified afterwards that she didn't realize until after the event had finished.
But at the time, you thought that she had noticed him doing it, like in the moment.
Yeah, because of the phrasing of her tweet, saying that like it sounded like she said, "I didn't say anything because it was awkward." But apparently later on, she tried to say, "Well, what I meant was it was awkward to say anything after the fact," which I think is what she said afterwards.
All right. So okay, now that, in theory, you know, that's the sound. That is a sound argument. But what you were saying at the time was that, you know, if a girl like can't, if she gets, you know, stuck in the moment or stunned or stun locked is the phrase used on Twitch. But if she gets she has a trauma response, I guess you want to call it, like that isn't something that you can predict beforehand. Like now you're saying
If you, yeah, but
if
my,
it
my
happens,
yeah, my overall argument is like, if you think you're gonna have a trauma response to getting stealth, you shouldn't be having casual sex. That's super basic. And if it's happened 3 times, you should know by at least the 3rd time that like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. I think is a pretty fair take.
so the problem that I had with that is that she was a sex worker, so she's probably had hundreds of sexual experiences with people, and something has happened 3 times, and you're
Wait, is that
quote
true?
unquote.
Yeah, if that's true, I didn't know that. I'd never heard that before. It might be true. I'd never heard that before, that she was a sex worker.
Okay, let me take that back because I am not actually 100% sure. I thought I heard that heard you say that or somebody say that to you in a conversation or something. Let me take that back.
Mm-hmm.
But even if she's not a sex worker, let's just say she had 50 sexual experiences in her life,
Mm-hmm.
and she's had a bad experience 3 times. The advice I think that should be given to her is to pick her partners more carefully. Is if you can't handle these type of situations. No, it wouldn't be if you can't handle these type of situations, don't have sex. So when I say victim blaming, that's what I'm talking about, because you took the situation, you're talking to the victim of the situation, and your assessment of the whole situation is, well, if you can't handle it, stop having sex.
Yeah, but like, how is it victim blaming? You're just assigning some agency to the person having sex. If you find that you are running into these negative situations over and over again, do you just tell the person, like, keep doing it? Like, keep getting raped, I guess, LOL? Or do you tell the person, like, hey, like, maybe it's time to take a step back and reevaluate. Like, this isn't good. I don't understand why when we have conversations about anything in society, we talk about, like, defensive behaviors. Like, when you talk about driving, you talk about defensive driving. Or when you talk about going to school, you talk about being careful, making sure that you're, in the right areas at the right time. Like, you're not out past too late. Like, we have all these conversations about being responsible. But for some reason, when we talk about sex, I think, to quote one of my earlier tweets, we're supposed to treat women like retarded children. Like, you can't do anything to mitigate any risk. And if you dare say a single thing about it, you're like instantaneously victim blaming. I don't think that's the case. Based on the initial tweet, for what I had to work off of, if somebody says that somebody's in the process of stealthing them, but they're too awkward to say anything, that's a person that probably shouldn't be having casual sex. If you're going to engage in sex, there's like a list of responsibilities that go along with that privilege. And if you're not capable of handling the responsibilities, then you probably shouldn't be having the privilege. I think that's a super basic take. I think most reasonable people would agree with that, like, instantly. I don't think that's that extreme.
That's not that extreme, but that's not the way you well, yeah, you did say the retarded child part. That's the part, like, where we get into the victim blaming, like the language you're using to talk to this victim, basically. And my objection is, yes, like, when you're driving a car, you're taught to drive defensively. I tell my girlfriend all the time, you're not the only person on the road. Drive like the person next to you is drunk or about to fall asleep. That needs to be your like automatic standard operating procedure, basically, when you're driving.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to sex, there's a certain amount of trust, I think, that women and men put in their sexual partner. So when you have a conversation explicitly about wearing a condom and the person decides to stealth you, right? You don't know what else they're going to do. Like, if they're willing to stealth you, if they're willing to take that measure, they may be willing to go further, or maybe they're just sneaky.
This is of all
and
the things that somebody could do to you, stealthing is way down on the list of, like, sexual assault, right?
But that's where it starts, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't
that is the
interrupt.
start. But, like, so my question would be then, I guess I'll just flip it around. What would your advice be to somebody like that? Let's say that you have a friend who's like, man, I got stealth 3 times, but I didn't want to say anything because it was awkward. Like, I've got a Tinder date tonight. What would your advice be to that person? What would you say?
Not to go on that Tinder date.
Yeah, or at the very least, like, don't hook up, because it seems like you have a problem setting and reinforcing boundaries or asserting boundaries. Like, maybe you need to, like, take a step back and figure whatever you have to do that out before. But now we're saying, like, the same thing, except maybe you could argue I said it's meaner. But, like, why is what you're saying there? Why is that not victim blaming to tell somebody, like, don't go on the date? Aren't you blaming her now, telling her she can't date just because some men might be rapists?
Well, because you presented me with a specific scenario. Your advice was, like, in general, don't go out and don't have casual sex. If somebody
that would be
presented me,
That would be my thing in general. If any woman said that she got stealth 3 times, but she didn't say anything because it was awkward, my advice to that person would always be stop having casual sex until you can figure out how to assert those boundaries or reassert those boundaries.
And so, yeah, all right. So they say, well, I have reasserted those boundaries, and well, no, this was a different one she was talking about when she said she got raped harder, and then you started laughing.
That phrasing is really funny. I'm sorry. Getting raped harder is not funny, but that phrasing is just really silly. But this is also like...
Well, that's not what you said, though. Like, if you would have said if you would have said that's a silly way to phrase it and then laughed.
Wait, hold on.
You laughed and then went on to say, well, then you went on to continue with your argument. Like,
well, I feel like I explicitly say, like, that's not funny. It's just a funny way to phrase it. I did.
I remember this.
Okay, yeah, I did. Like, it's not funny when somebody gets raped, but when somebody's like, "I got raped harder," that phrasing is like very like ironic. It's like somebody
you laughed and then you were like, "Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing at that."
Yeah,
like, it was
it's
just
like somebody
that
saying like
silly.
somebody was like murdering me, and then I tried to defend myself, and then they murdered me harder. Like, just the phrasing is funny, but like it's not funny when somebody's getting raped, obviously. Yeah, but like,
I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Ty.
Go ahead. No, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad. I'm not that you needed to say that, but like it comes off a lot less like I said,
I'm pretty
the way
edgy and like I'm kind of an asshole. I agree with that, but I think fundamentally, I think that my advice is solid, and I think that most of the talk on the other side is incredibly irresponsible and really silly. The idea that like women just have no agency, you know, if you get raped, like it's just gonna happen over and over again, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's okay because like freedom of choice, and you can do whatever. Like I think that's really stupid. Like I think that advice is harmful. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard anybody give that advice. Like,
yeah, they don't say that
time.
exactly, but this is where the conversation logically leads, right? Even what you were saying earlier, like maybe if somebody's getting stealth, like maybe they're too scared to say anything. Like stealthing is the weakest. It's like on the bottom level of all the sexual assaults. If you can't assert your boundary during a stealth, like what you're essentially saying is that, like any guy that pushes any boundary should be able to 100% get away with it because the woman shouldn't be expected to do anything otherwise. That's insane to me. Like I don't think it should be that controversial to say like if you've had 3 bad experiences, like if I had any friend ever that said they had 3 bad experiences and they'd gotten raped, like I would actively call that friend a dumb fuck if they continue to go and hook up with people. I would say really mean things ever, like you're so stupid. But like if you even try to have this conversation publicly, even in nicer words, like you immediately get called a victim blamer. I don't know. I just think that's ridiculous. But
all right. So look, I think that's a good point at which you guys have kind of really sussed out, like I guess the majority of your point, right? STV Philly. I think it'd be nice here to kind of I guess to rope in Soy-section. I want to hear. I can't believe that's your name. I want to hear your position, please. We had also a back and forth, and it felt like you actually did. You know what? I don't have to explain it. Please just give your position.
Yeah, sure. So I'm really so I guess I'll run into my opening statement. So, hey, first of all, I'd like to thank Fanatiq for hosting this panel and for inviting me. I'm really thankful that I get to be here. I support the Destiny ban because I think that platforms which enable political conversation have a responsibility to stop their members from being massively and unnecessarily inflammatory. I feel that there is some level of inflammatory behavior that is reasonable, but Destiny and many other political streamers are far beyond that threshold. I want to be clear that just because I support the ban doesn't mean that I agree with MX Vivian. I know there were some people who were believed that I might agree with her. And it doesn't mean that I agree with the idea that Destiny is transphobic or racist or otherwise hateful. I think I probably disagree with you if you support the Destiny ban. I'm really excited. I included this part because it was kind of an opening. It doesn't really make sense here. I'm excited to talk to you all about social media policy. Thanks again to Fanatiq for the invitation.
Well, it actually does matter. Thank you for that intro, because that also plays into sort of what Katie was talking about, where it's not necessarily just about Destiny deserved to be banned. I mean, even though that's part of your point, she also had a point that I think had to do with specifically responsible platforming, the influence on the community, whether or not people have net good and things like that. Katie, can you give yours as well, please?
Hi. Yeah. What I wanted to talk about was a bit different. I wanted to, when Destiny caught the end tail of a panel, that boy, that Soy, can I call you Soy? Would that be weird? I'll call you Section. It's fine.
No,
when
you can
that
call me
Section
Soy.
I were
Call me
on.
Soy. That's accurate.
Okay, then that Soy and I were on. there was some talks about how I said that Destiny isn't very helpful for progressives, and I felt like he took issue with that. So I mainly came to suss that out because I think we can actually reach an agreement on that in terms of what Destiny is or was to like the Twitch community in terms of like his political advocacy and in terms of um, what responsibility big platform owners have, someone like Destiny's size or Bosch's size, in terms of their online engagement, Twitch or Twitter or whatever. That's also something that I would like to discuss. And Philly already kind of touched on it. It's like Destiny already admitted that he's kind of a dick on Twitter. I think that if you're going to be a dick and then ask for nuanced conversations, that's kind of contradictory. I think Destiny can have like nuanced conversations, but I also think it depends if he feels like it or not. And with the size of his platform, I think that there might be some questions worth asking there. But I'll wait my turn.
Should I just like say the opening that I have, or you're muted, Fanatiq?
Sorry, Rizom, I was going to say that you also had something like kind of along those lines as well. Please go ahead and give your opening.
I mean, to be honest, the only thing that I think Destiny should be off the platform for are his food takes. Like, the issue for me is that people are way more concerned about how things sound than what's actually being said. And I don't understand what separates Destiny from just a gamer bro giving their take on Twitter. Like, we wouldn't go this far with some other gamer bro. Just because he does political work doesn't mean that he's chained down to it or that everything that he does has to serve a specific political goal with his online engagement. Like, and the other thing too is like earlier STV was like saying that Fanatiq was steelmanning his takes. It's like, should we not be charitable with someone who we know like has good takes or is capable of like having nuanced discussion? Like, so yeah, really, I don't know. My issue is like how quickly this turns into us speculating on harm that can come from shit, which is just nebulous as fuck and really can't be shown. And we'd have no idea like what the harm that could be done by a community like this is. And that people just act like it's like this, like given that like Destiny, because he's so big, has harmful factions in his community. I mean, I just challenge you to find anyone who's a large creator on Twitch who doesn't have a transphobic faction in their community. Like, that's a very mainstream way of thinking because people aren't like fucking woke on trans issues everywhere across the board. Some normie ass motherfucker is going to also have people in their audience who have some like non-progressive takes. It's just, I don't know. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Can I engage with that?
Sure.
Is that okay? Yeah, I don't think at least when I'm talking about harm or stuff like that, I don't think I'm talking about the fact that I agree that every big Twitch streamer probably has a transphobic faction in their community. I think I think what separates someone's like Destiny from any other gamer bro isn't the fact that, oh, you do political content, therefore you're 100% always responsible and should always be on your best behavior, and you should always be consistent and logical and like ideologically aligned or whatever. I don't think that at all. But I do think what you said is kind of a weak argument since like Destiny's like community, and I've had little engagement with it. But I don't want to say known because I feel like known implies a lot of accountability, which I'm not sure it's worthy of. But there are definitely a lot of people online that think Destiny's community has, some people in his communities have a tendency to cause a lot of harm to creators that disagree with him. And I think that is demonstrable. Like, there are many like online creators who would come out and say that they were harassed by some people in Destiny's community. And to be fair to Destiny, he does a lot to try to manage that, and he can't control potentially hundreds of thousands of people. But that's why I'm arguing that okay, I think he can do more in terms of that management, and we can discuss that. But yeah, I think that to say he's a big streamer, but he's the same as the average Joe, I think that's a bit disingenuous.
I just don't think he takes on certain responsibilities because he's using Twitch as an entertainment platform first and foremost, which is what it is, rather than people pretending that it's like some place like where political advocacy happens and political action happens. Twitch is not a political platform. Twitch doesn't want politics on it. That's why somebody like Destiny is going to be banned, because Twitch wants to have the least common denominator positions platformed, because they don't have AdSense that targets users in a direct way. So they need everybody to hit those lowest common denominator beliefs and values who they put on their platform. So like Twitch's reluctance to be a political platform is what's causing this. And then we're trying to we're trying to fit it into something that it's not. It's entertainment first and foremost. And when you say Destiny could be doing more, that really is purely speculative. Like, unless you want to talk about what he's already doing now, this is just one of those arguments that a lot of people on the left love to give, and I'm on the left too, but it's just this nebulous, like, we could always improve. Like, could we?
No, I have concrete ideas for it that I don't mind
Okay,
discussing.
sure.
But like, what I want to say was, again, I'm not saying that Destiny is owed anything because he uses Twitch for like political content. My general overarching like main idea to talk about on this panel is the fact that maybe when someone's community reaches a certain size and certain level of influence in a sphere, this person is no longer held can be held in the same regard as someone who has like 80 followers like I do, you know? Maybe someone like Destiny, who had over like 500,000 followers on Twitch, is not the same as like a really small creator in terms of their level of influence, and maybe we should hold them to different standards, you know, like we do public figures, for example.
Just why are we having this conversation about Destiny and not XQC? Like, I just don't get it. It just feels like we're just like picking a fight with somebody who has like who like is doing fine work, has fine intentions, like engages in a spicy way. We're talking about the discourse they sparked fucking months later because that they sparked it in an interesting way. Like, dude, Destiny, I'm not trying to suck your fucking dick. It's just there's no actual complaint here, in my opinion.
Well, so I guess so this is a couple of things. So I've started writing up like a big thing because I'm kind of curious where people's ideas and thoughts come from. And I noticed like a couple of patterns. So like, here's one thing that I've noticed lately. The way that it works is what happens is a claim is made about me without any substantiation. And then enough people hear it and start repeating it. And I don't really challenge it because I can't prove a negative. And then what happens is this mythos builds up where all of a sudden it's just kind of taken at face value. Katie even uttered the words. I think she said like it's evident, like so many people say these things about Destiny's horrible, harassing community. I'm going to say this, the vast majority of people in the politics space on Twitch don't know what harassment is. You have no idea. Getting 2 or 3 DMs that tell you to kill yourself it's not even worth mentioning. If that type of stuff is like dissuading you from being in this space, you shouldn't be in this space. You should go do something different. When people say that like my community is involved in brigading, or that like we direct like hate raids or whatever, like I have thousands of people watching me at any point in time. If I was directing hate raids, you would be getting hundreds or maybe thousands of messages, depending on the dedicated level of hate that I decide to send your way. Like the reality is we do a lot in my community to make sure that people aren't being hateful towards other people. We do cross-platform bans. We've asked people multiple times to compile lists of people that are being rude or disrespectful. I go out of my way to mute people or block people on Twitter that are trans. Like I do all this shit. I do more than any other creator in this space with an audience of my size to police the types of interactions I get that most don't even come from my community. But I still get like little children that are crying that they get 2 negative tweets that they're being brigaded or harassed by my community. When the reality is a lot of you guys just say really stupid shit and then you get mad that you get any pushback for it publicly. So I get a little bit upset when people like make this hate raid claim constantly or this massive harassment claim constantly. I think it comes from people that just haven't dealt with a lot of internet related harassment and they think that 1 or 2 DMs is like more than anybody should ever have to deal with for negative pushback on the internet.
Soy, do you disagree with that?
So I don't disagree with the idea that Destiny's community broadly doesn't brigade. I do think that I think if that was meant to be responsive to me, that I just wouldn't hold the position that he's like super into brigading or whatever. The thing I'm gonna say is that I have more problems with stuff where you're like saying things like the R word children tweet or the photoshopped blackface. I'm not saying you're doing blackface, but the image
digital
of your face
blackface. It's okay.
I don't even like saying that.
That was such a good tweet. Come on, Soy.
I mean, like, I can understand if we say like this is like irresponsible or like edgy humor. It's not like becoming of whatever. Like, I'm fine with that. But like, racist, transphobic, like, I feel like is a little bit of a stretch. Unless like this is where the bar is at today for online discourse, which is what it kind of seems.
Well, so really quick. I guess I want to be clear about something else. When I opened for the first time on the conversation I was having with Not So Erudite, I opened with a much stronger thing, which was that like, or maybe it wasn't on that panel, it was somewhere. I opened with like that I like hate the Twitch politics space, and I think that like the Twitch politics space. I'm not criticizing you, Fanatiq, but like the Twitch politics space is probably like one of the most toxic politics spaces on the entire internet. Or it's at least like,
that's not even remotely true, right? Like,
sorry. I actually misspoke when I said most toxic on the internet. I'm like referring to people like Vosh, or not Vosh, sorry, like Hassan. Like these people who are like making false predictions about like Ukraine or whatever. We're having like constant.
Yeah, but even that like every single politics space on the internet is unfathomably toxic. Even the people in the SJW areas, like Something Awful or Reset Era, are like pretty toxic. And then when you go to places like 4chan or Kiwi Farms, like, to pretend that like Twitch is like exceptional here is just you're wildly outside of what is actually happening, unless you just haven't spent. Or I could ask, like, where do you think are these non-toxic political spaces on the internet? It's not Twitter, it's not Facebook, it's not TikTok. And then I could ask even historically, in history, where have there been non-toxic political spaces? Like politics is just, it lends itself to toxicity. People feel really strongly about these things. Like, I feel like there are even stories of like fucking Plato and Aristotle like shit posting political opinions at people and like making fun. Like, this is like, I think you even said this a few times on that panel, that it's probably somewhat part of our nature. I think it is. I don't think that Twitch politics is anywhere near like uniquely toxic.
Yeah, Edward Snowden actually had the same opinion as Hassan.
Really quick, I actually
wasn't he? Go ahead.
So I want to correct what I said, because I think I misspoke, or it's not even I misspoke, I was just wrong. I don't think that Twitch politics is uniquely toxic, and I do think that it's part of our innate psychology that we are incredibly moralizing about our politics, because it's almost necessary. Necessary in the sense that it has to be kind of true. Like if we're not moralizing about moral views, like political views, then it's just not clear what moral even means, I guess. I think that when we look at the internet, that there's this really massive problem on the internet holistically, where communities have become maybe like more toxic than I think they have been in the past. So I think that internet communities broadly are like really insular. I think that like it's really like popular for people to like spam each other with porn, and I'm not saying you're doing this. And I think broadly, the way politics works on the internet is, I just think I have like a massive problem with it generally.
And I understand what you're saying. I swear to God, this sounds so bad faith, but I don't mean it to sound that way. How old are you?
I'm 19.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay, that's super great. I'm not trying to attack you on that. So I'm 33. To say that like the internet now has gotten more toxic, oh man, like I don't know what stories you've heard, but like
Oh, Destiny.
Oh man, like even the early days of Xbox Live, like it wouldn't surprise me if the N-word was used in the time span of 1 month in Xbox Live more than in all of U.S. slavery history, like by like 11-year-old kids.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Jesus.
like I'm just saying that, like, and again, I'm not trying to say, I don't want to be really clear, okay? Like we should all strive to something better. We should all try to do better. We can all like push towards better things. I think that's great. I think that's awesome we do that. But I think it's really important that we keep a perspective, because a lot of times, and lefties are really horrible about this, is they always act like we're at the worst stage for race relations, we're the worst stage for misogyny, we're the worst. And it's like, man, I don't think that's the case at all, right? Like the left people always act like, you know, we've got to win the culture war. Like they won the culture war like 5 years ago. Like it's over. Like now it's time to like do actual work. But people keep acting like we're still in like these worst parts of history, and I don't think that is the case. I feel like
the worst example of racism is you posting a photoshopped tweet of your face as blackface. Like I think we're in a pretty good place. Like,
sorry, really quick. Mm-hmm. It's super important because I'm noticing this happen.
Tweets in that.
I'll totally let other people go in a second. I'm sorry. It's just like really quick. There's something that's kind of frustrating. So there's this idea that you talk about, Destiny, of the web, where people will take your positions and they'll map it onto another position and they'll run down the position of inferences. And this is really similar to an idea that's talked about in a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, where they talk about these kind of holistics that people will develop and types. So they'll look at, we could use like a race, like people will become racist or something like that, but it's also true of political groups of people where they'll make a bunch of unjust inferences. I'm getting a little bit frustrated. Not in like an angry way, just like it's just
it's okay.
Well, kind of my central thesis is that we shouldn't do that.
To never get angry, it's part of the human experience.
Not to never get angry, but to be less seethingly angry.
Okay. Well, we don't have to get to seethingly angry. There are steps on the way to being angry, right? You can be a little angry.
Well, sure. I guess what I'm saying is that I think I'm kind of clarifying where I am relative.
What's the acceptable amount of seethe?
Sure. The point I'm making is just that when I'm saying these things, I'm not saying them as like a far lefty, strong, super leftist person, or as a person who holds to this strong view that everything you've ever said is transphobic and that you're a bigot, racist, whatever. I'm holding to this view that politics online maybe isn't at the, it certainly isn't at the, or I guess I've learned in this conversation that it's not at the peak of awful it's ever been. But on the flip side, it's also the case that politics and the internet broadly has been, like, I think, really negative for our political engagement with each other. Like, we are more insular, I think, than we have been in a long while. Internet community is like, there's the meme about people who like the toaster meme, where people will go online and find like 1,000 other people who want to F toasters, and they'll sit in those communities forever. And that happens with politics. I think that these internet platforms like Twitch and Twitter, etc., have a responsibility to like try and make us more politically like willing to participate with each other.
Why?
I guess because I think that if they don't, that's going to be like really damaging to the structure of politics globally.
I don't think so. What I would submit is I don't think a platform can do this. They could try to facilitate better discussions, but I think that's largely going to fall on the culture, right? Of like the country or that particular part of the internet. And like a platform might have some moderating effect on this, but I don't know how much they could truly control that. Again,
a platform is incentivized to just maintain traffic, right, and clicks, and just maximize its output. So there's never going to be an incentive on Twitch to make for fair political discourse. It's going to just run counter to their bottom line, and like that's not what it's supposed to be. And like if you want to make your thing a political stream, then sure, it could have that angle to it. But the incentives just aren't built into the platform, and the platform itself is not trying to be a political platform.
So
STV Philly, really quickly, STV Philly, you said that you felt that there were like significantly worse tweets.
So yeah, Rise Alma said like if that the tweet of the N-word, if that was the worst tweet, then we're in a good space. And I was saying,
that was the worst tweet in terms of if that's where racism is at now.
Okay. Yeah, we've got our Destiny's gotten a lot better on Twitter over the years, but
I just don't get why we're nitpicking. I just don't.
No, nitpick.
Well,
Let's nitpick away. This is the nitpicking.
This is why
panel.
we were brought on.
Yeah,
I guess you're right now.
Literally the point of the panel.
Do it.
I didn't. Hey, I don't know. Dude, fuck. I don't know. The nitpicking just gets to me, man.
Go for it. What do we
It's
want
all
to
right.
nitpick?
Just chill and let him do it.
Yeah, so here's my thing. It's not. I don't really feel like it's nitpicking. I feel like these are grievances that people have.
Well, it is nitpicking if you admit he does a lot of good, right? Like,
well, no, but I mean, like, just because you do a lot of good doesn't necessarily mean there aren't like behaviors worth criticizing.
for sure,
Yeah.
it just feels like how much better is it going to get if you just didn't tweet that N-word tweet with the blackface or whatever?
Well, I don't know. It
quote,
depends.
black
Let's
Well, we
find
don't
out
know
what are the
what he's
tweets.
talking about.
Criticism?
Yeah, let him
Yeah, let's-
just speak your
Yeah.
I can't find it, but the it's lit tweet that was kind of egregious. Yeah, I know you think it's super funny.
Okay, but like, I'm so curious. Okay, do you know the context of the tweet? Okay, so
Just
like this.
refresh my memory.
No,
refresh
it's
my
fine
memory.
because nobody
Yeah.
does. Okay, so I was having an argument. So back then, this is when I was solidly in like my very like big like anti-gamer bro. Like I was fighting against a lot of conservatives. we were tweeting out something. I don't remember the full context, but it had to do with like either systemic racism or like the average black experience in America. And I was fighting with conservatives over something relating to that. And basically my argument was that like, there's a lot of systemic racism, there's like white privilege, etc. Like, the black experience in the United States is like pretty fucked to some extent. And for whatever reason, like there's like a black nationalist segment of people on Twitter. And I guess like they caught wind of this or were like harassing me on Twitter. And then one girl responded, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. The black experience is lit. And like, it was like really contradictory to what I was talking about. It was a really stupid tweet from her. And then I tweeted back, like, what do you like? Basically, like, what do you mean by lit? Like, why would you say that? And that's when I tweeted back the KKK crowd. I was like, lit, you say? Which is admittedly edgy, but I think proves my point. Like, it's not like I was just like finding random black people on Twitter to harass. I was fighting somebody that was like tweeting in opposition to me saying that there's like systemic racism against black people. That was the point of that tweet. It wasn't just like me randomly shitting on black people. It was like, if anything, the opposite. Now, again, we can argue it was edgy, but I feel like people bring this up like I was just like I just like prowled Twitter looking for poor black people to harass with my racism.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, you, on the one hand, you say a lot, okay, I get that was edgy, I get that I'm a dick, yeah, I'm a bit of an asshole, yeah, I'm kind of mean, and you admit to these things. But then earlier you also said that we can always do better, we can always improve, we can always aspire to do better. So I guess what I'm asking, like, legitimately, is that something that you want or willing to improve on? Because for me, from my perspective, it just doesn't seem like being nicer online is something that you're interested in doing.
No, I think that people that obsess on that are losers. I don't care about that. I think that people are more concerned today with like appearing not racist or appearing not transphobic than actually being good people. I don't think that phrasing your stuff in a nice way makes you a good person. I think that the only people that think that are people that don't know good people or don't know what it means to be a good person. I think it's incredibly stupid. Like even to try to put myself in the state of mind where I see somebody say something that's like a little bit edgy, a little bit controversial, for me to instantly assume the worst about that person. I would assume less of the people that make the assumptions than the person that made the edgy joke. I think it's like a really naive way to evaluate people.
Do you think I'm doing that?
I think you have in the past, yeah, but I don't remember your particular statements. But
Okay. I don't think that you're racist or transphobic, and I don't really care about that. I just, again, I think that one of the ways to maybe help like reduce harassment is like obviously just be generally nicer as a person, but I also can't make you do that, especially if you have no interest in doing that. So that is kind of like a moot point in that sense. I also want to
why not
address
just,
something
can I
you
just
said.
ask something to that? Why not
Yeah.
just block people? Why did we lose the ability to do that? Is that like really
do you
that
mean?
hard? Like just if somebody's being mean, why not just block them?
Do you mean why when you're mean to someone they don't block you?
Or like, or yeah, or if even not block me, like if somebody DMs you something mean, just like block that person and then move on.
Well, because I'm not talking about like, again, you're an online public figure to me. So when I'm talking, I don't know why other people don't block other people on Twitter, right? I only know myself, and I just don't read comments or engage on Twitter because I don't have the skin for it. It's very simple. So I don't know why people don't block other people on Twitter. I just know that like I don't think blocking you would work, but I just generally was saying that the way that you speak of some people, like even the girl with the stealth thing, like you know how I felt like about how you laughed, and we talked about that. But during that conversation, you and Hanzo Vakir were calling her the R-word child.
Hold
for
on.
the entire
Did I?
conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have to be careful because like you guys gaslight the fuck out of me because a lot of you guys have never even heard
Okay.
my original statements. Hold on. Did I actually call her a retarded child, or did
No.
I say do we
Wait,
have
wait,
to
wait.
treat women like retarded children who need their
No,
fathers to
so
show up when they
I
have sex?
think- I think what happened is that Hans said that she just tweeted something, and then you asked who, and then he said the R-word child, and then you're like, you guys agreed that that's her basically.
Okay,
I
so
don't
then your
remember
problem
who
there is Hans, not me. He characterized her that way, right?
said- Okay, I didn't.
I mean, like, hold on, real quick. The reason why I'm going to start to be more anal about this stuff is because you guys have, like, again, there's, like, this mythos built up of stories revolving around me, and I find out that, like, 95% of what people claim I said is not even remotely true. So like right there, like I didn't call her a retarded child. Somebody else said, oh, the one girl that is a retarded child. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I know who he's referring to. Now, if you want to argue that like somebody, like if you would have said there was a time when Hans referred to a rape victim as a retarded child and you knew who he was talking about, but you should have stepped down and corrected him. Okay, fine. That's fair. But that's a way different thing than me saying like I called a rape victim a retarded child.
That's fine, but I never said it like that, right?
You absolutely said that. We can pull the clip if you want, but you said that I called a rape victim a retarded
Did I say
child.
it like... Okay. Well, if I did, then I apologize.
Okay, which is fine. I don't think a lot of this even happens intentionally. I think a lot of it is unintentional, but I'm just being clear on what was said. But okay.
I do think that it could have done a lot of good if you like interjected in that moment. But again, I don't think being nicer is quote unquote a priority for you. What I did want to address, like something that happened earlier, is that you said that like 2 or 3 DMs of people telling you to go kill yourself isn't harassment, right? I get the general point that you were making, but this is a genuine question. Do you actually think that's not harassment, or do you think that's harassment not worth mentioning?
It's incredibly minor harassment is what I would say. If it's the type of harassment that like keeps you from these spaces, like you just shouldn't be in these spaces because it gets so much worse than that. And my harassment is like 100-fold that. So it's a little bit comical when people like complain to me about it and then make me out to be like some huge boogeyman evil guy, especially when other content creators themselves are involved in actual brigading and actual like coordinated harassment campaigns against me. But
well, and the platforms have built-in tools to prevent those things, right? If you're receiving a couple DMs, it's just a click away from you not seeing that shit anymore.
It's okay.
So I look at Twitch like a workspace, and everybody is colleagues in different departments. You know, not everybody knows each other, not everybody interacts with each other, but everybody you know, it's like a workplace. Okay, so Destiny, I'm not even sure if I think you said this on stream, but I saw it on YouTube, so I don't know if it was on Twitch, right? But the thing recently where you said the online trans community is not even worth engaging with because they are subhuman and
inbred or something.
You used another word. I can't remember what it was.
Probably something like that.
So that was another one of my points of contention, I guess, with you is your generalization of groups. And I understand everybody uses hyperbole when they speak, so I don't expect everybody to, you know, say things perfectly or express themselves exactly the way they meant to the first time. But when you have room to clarify and then you double down and say, yo, that is what I meant.
I think it is legitimately one of the worst groups online. Like, 100%. I guess people really don't like the word subhuman, so maybe I shouldn't say subhuman, but like I think it is legitimately one of the most toxic communities that exists on the internet, yeah. And I guess we can argue that like, and I do almost every time I say this, I do caveat that like not all trans people are like this. Like in the real world, trans people are not insane like these people online in these communities. I've caveated this like so many times, but like I should be able to call out how fucking horrible that community is online. And people have already done it on this panel where people are comfortable like stereotyping like gamers, right? Like what are gamer bros like? And that's an arguably even larger, more diverse group of people. So I don't know. I don't stand by this idea that like you can't call out like shitty communities when they're shitty just because they happen to be like a minority community.
No, but it isn't that it's a minority community. It's that the percentage of trans people that are online that you've interacted with is probably, I'd say, I don't know, I'm gonna say less than 10%. It's probably a lot less than that, but let's just do a best guess. You've probably interacted with less than 10% of trans people online. And I understand you might have had bad experiences with these people. Fanatiq has told me some of his experiences with some of the same people you have issues with.
Again,
right?
I understand what you're saying, but like I just reject it, right? Like 5 DGGers are enough for people to stereotype my entire community, but like me interacting with people that are getting like 50,000 likes on tweets aren't? Like, how does that make any sense? Like, I feel like people are so quick to stereotype every other community, and I'm not even stereotyping all trans people. I said this a million times. Like, I'm only talking about like the online like trans activist community, and I feel like there's enough engagement there. I feel like there's enough like public like visibility there, and we've seen how it bleeds over into so many people. I feel pretty comfortable making that assertion. And like, I hate to cite because it's coming from my community, so it could be biased, but like almost every email that I've gotten from another trans person also says that they fucking hate the online trans community, that it like makes their real life measurably worse because of the way that they function online and in the real world. So I don't even feel like it's that hot of a take. But because it's like the trans community. People get like super like ass mad about it.
As a vegan, I know exactly what this is like.
Yeah.
Well, I've interacted with plenty of wonderful trans people on this platform, plenty of them. And I've also interacted with some of these same people that you're talking about, and I feel the same. I feel the same way. I feel like there's a lot of degenerates on here. There's a lot of exactly the caricature of what people in their head have of trans people. There are individuals on this platform that behave in that way. I'm with you there. Where I'm not with you is, like I said, to generalize. Like, if you were to call out the individuals, like if you were to say, Demon Mom and Keffels, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be mentioning names. I'm sorry. But if you were to mention like the names of these people that you've been having issues with, that would be different. But so like if I interact with Jesse Lee Peterson and Candace Owens and it's just some of the black people that I really, really don't agree with, and probably would argue with. Now, if I came back,
Irrelevant. I was just throwing in an extra name. Go ahead.
Damn.
So yeah, if I was just to mention, and say, the interaction I've had on this platform with black people has been just horrible, and the online black community is subhuman, and just repeat verbatim what you said. Now, I'm not equating black people and trans people, obviously, but if I were to make that statement, even about Asian people or white people, I think it would be a lot easier for people to see how that statement is problematic.
I guess it just depends on like the community, depends on like how true the statement is. Like you bring up, now this is a limited experience of mine, so I don't know if I would go as crazy with this, but like you bring up Asian people, for instance, right? Like, are you familiar with any of like the Hapas communities like online? Some of these communities are really, I'll just say sus in terms of like how they function, to where, and this might be a bit of a stereotype, and I'm sure there are people outside of these communities, but like there's the trope of like a lot of Asian men that are really resentful of Asian women and white people and being in half and mixed race families, because they see like the fetishization of white people happen, and that Asian women tend to go for white guys, and there's like a whole negative stereotype built in that. If somebody came off of like a bunch of interactions like that, and they're like, man, the online, like Hapas community, or the online like like Asian community is like really fucking weird, or like really degenerate, depending on like how they intersect with it. If it was like a woman, I mean, I could understand it. It just depends on the community. But I think that
those two things are completely, the Hapas and the Asians, like those two statements are completely different, because one is it's a subset of a group of people, like a specific subset of a group of people. Like, so if I were to say, white nationalists are abhorrent, I'd be talking about only white people. Or if I were to say white nationalists are subhuman, I'd only be talking about white people, but I'd be talking about such a specific, narrow subset of white people that statement I don't think people would find problematic.
Sure, but when I talk about like trans, I never say like all trans people are bad. I've never said this, like, ever. It's always like the online trans activist community. This is like always what I'm talking about, and people know it. Like, people always know that this is what I'm talking about. Because I say like a million times otherwise, like, don't let these people, like, shade your view of normal trans people, because real life trans people are nowhere near as deranged as like these communities online. I've said this a million times. Like, I think my fans could like repeat these caveats that I give verbatim, because I've said it so much.
I guess I'm so used to hearing this language used about people like myself, people who used to, engage in gang activity and used to live illegal lifestyle. There's been so many generalizations about poor black people or black people that live in the hood, that it just sounds to me you're getting close to the territory of like, I'm not saying transphobic, because I hate putting, sure. I just hate that.
I understand what you're saying. It sounds bad. So like, here's a question, okay? Let's say, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but like, let's say you agree with me that like the online trans activist community is super fucked. Let's say that you agree with that. What would you call them? How would you address it?
I would address, like I said, specific individuals that I've had interactions with, like one by one, and call them out.
Yeah, but the problem isn't specific individuals. I actually go against that. I don't think the problem is specific individuals. I think the problem is how popular it gets. Because that used to be my argument, like back in 2016, when like Sargon of Akkad and Armored Skeptic, these people would they would find one crazy blue-haired screaming SJW, and they try to say like, look at how crazy this is. This is bullshit. Like, and my argument would always be like, okay, well, like it's one person. Like, why do you care? Like, this is just like one random on Twitter. Like, you don't have to like make a big deal out of this. But the problem with some of the crazy stuff that happens in the online trans community is that it's really, really popular in those communities. If it was just Demon Mama or just Doe or just like one of these people, then okay, whatever. Like everybody, like any individual could be crazy. Like they have their opinions. Who cares? But the problem is how popular some of the rhetoric gets and some of the toxicity gets. That's my issue with it. So the problem is the community, not one or two people.
But Destiny, I think one of the problems that he's like kind of like trying to say is that when you use the phrase like subhuman, then that ends up sounding like a dog whistle because subhuman is so oftenly associated.
Sure, I mean, like I can, yeah,
people.
and I'll try to find different insults, I guess, or like different words. But I mean, I feel like if you use like an ounce of good faith, like you understand what you're saying. So like for instance, like, and because I didn't say anything because I don't think this guy's transphobic, but like I would argue that he used a word that I think is way worse against trans communities than subhuman, and that's degenerate. That's something that conservatives say quite often because trans people with degenerate lifestyles, blah, 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 blah. But like, just because he described it that way, and he didn't even mean they were, but just because he used that word, I'm not going to assume like, oh, he's probably crazy transphobic. Like, can't we do like a little bit more to figure out what people are saying or what people believe? Like, are we really like so fucking afraid of dog whistles that we're checking every single fucking corner, that we're breaking out our online urban dictionaries to check the definition of every single word somebody says to see if there's any crossover with any hateful community ever at any point in time? And if there is, you have to find it. Like, that just seems so tiring to me.
But
Destiny.
can you agree that like maybe after the trans athlete debate, it would make some people question whether you're I don't think that you're transphobic. Again, I think that's a bit silly. It's very clear that you're not. But I'm sure you're smart enough to understand how some of the stuff you said will be interpreted as transphobic.
Only by idiots that are trying to. I don't think that any of my conversation is transphobic.
Okay.
The only stuff that is transphobic are the people that go out of their way to make 15-second clips of what I said. So if you want to be critical of
people who aren't
if you want to be
familiar with
critical of content of mine, then you can criticize my content. But 20-second clips of me are not my content. I don't make 20-second clips. I don't have 45-second conversations. I don't talk about huge social issues in the span of 32 seconds. I have like hour-long discussions or 30-minute conversations with people. So if you're seeing content that is 30 seconds long that I'm talking about trans people, that's not my content. So go criticize those people because they're the ones that are intentionally misrepresenting the things that I'm saying. I don't think anybody's ever come off of a full conversation of mine where they think at the end of it like, yeah, fuck trans people. I hate trans people. Destiny's right. I don't think people have that takeaway. The only way you get that takeaway is by people clipping things from me and then selling that as like my content.
But do you think someone can watch the whole of your prime case debate on trans athletes and think some of the things Destiny said that were transphobic or contributed to transphobic rhetoric?
No.
Really?
Unless your definition of transphobic is any question that doesn't unquestionably support 100% the most radical trans agenda sold online. That is how a lot of people like what they would consider transphobic. I think Viv, I don't want to misquote her because I'm trying, but it was either Viv or somebody else mentioned that like if you, I think it was Viv, like said that if you question, you know, like the veracity of trans athletes, that is transphobic. That in and of itself is transphobic. Like, so by that, that's insane to me.
Yeah, and I think Viv is not the right person to have that nuanced conversation.
Who is? It's like, not Demon Mama. It's not Doe. It was RGR, but she got chased off the internet by these trans activists that literally tried to get her bar revoked, her license revoked after she passed the bar.
Wait, when we say trans activists, do we mean people who advocate for like trans rights? Because that, or do we mean people who are trans people? Because I could be a trans advocate, right? And
I'm not talking about advocate. I'm talking about activist. An activist, and I'm not trying to condescend, but at least in English in America, activist usually has like a pretty specific like connotation of somebody that is like dedicating a large portion of their life in generally like a pretty radical or pushing the boundary way. It's usually how people refer to activists. So when I say activist, that's what I mean. But I don't just mean anybody that advocates for things. Yeah, sorry.
But Viv isn't like an activist in that way. She's a trans woman who talks about trans issues because people talk about that a lot with her.
No.
Viv's occupation is to do with fascism and cults. That's the main thing she talks about.
That's not true. That's not true. Okay, in our conversation, in the conversation that I think Destiny is pulling the quote he was pulling from, Viv was actively talking about activism that she does. I think she actively is and considers herself to be an activist. Also,
Wait, then so can I consider myself being an activist, or do we need to measure like the amount of how much of my life I'm dedicating to activism?
If you spend like a large time like talking about something that's like pushing like an edge issue, I think you can consider yourself like an activist. Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So if that's the case, then we can agree that maybe some activists, like you used to say in 2016, maybe some activists are harder to have that conversation with, but there are plenty of activists that can have that nuanced discussion with you.
Disagree.
There are a lot of people.
That's the problem.
I get that. But
I don't think you can have these discussions anymore because of how trans activism has grown.
Then can I ask you something else?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you what are you basically trying to do? Because it feels like you are helpful to progressive causes in some way, but I feel like there's a lot of either frustration in you or whatever other negative like emotion or sentiment that causes you to like edge or like try to trigger the left basically. And I feel like that comes at the cost of those progressive causes, but that's my problem, not yours. What I'm asking is like, what do you want? Are you trying to provide the tension between the left and the right that you talk about?
No, I don't give a fuck about the left or the right. That's not my goal, is to even be aware of those positions. It doesn't inform anything that I do. My goal is that there are certain issues that I feel strongly about, moral positions and social positions. And I think that these are like, we have an obligation to treat these conversations with some level of respect. We have an obligation to create platforms, to create forums where people can engage in honest and, importantly, challenging ways with these topics, where we have like a certain level of truth that's required, a certain level of good faith, a certain level of goodwill, a certain level of like scientific accuracy, that it's important to be able to do that, because without that, you are shortchanging everybody that's involved in the discussion and everybody that the discussion impacts.
But you deem your information and your opinions to be the nuanced, challenging thing. But so you were presenting data in the trans athlete debate, and other people were presenting different data. And under your understanding, you have the correct data. So
no, wrong. Hold on, just wrong. This isn't what happens.
Okay. Then
Most of these people don't engage with any data. They don't read anything. They don't do anything. If it was what you're describing to me is a wet dream, that I have a debate with somebody on stream where we both have like two different studies and we're arguing over like the methodology or whose conclusion is correct. Somebody like Jangles could have this conversation. I had a conversation with him the other day ago. It was a good conversation. It wasn't heated. It wasn't passionate, but it was cool. It was a good conversation. That's not what happens. Usually what happens is there is a set expectation of which social lines you are repeating for the maximum amount of social credit. You cannot diverge, and most people don't have any fucking understanding of the positions they're arguing.
How can you argue that you want good faith conversations when you come into the conversations with that mindset?
I don't come in with that mindset. Sorry, go ahead. I'm cutting you off a lot. Okay, go.
It's okay.
It's not okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Don't yell at me. Okay. Because I watched the trans athlete debate, right? And there were a few people there who were presenting data. You weren't comparing studies. You weren't pulling out your studies either, right? You were just talking about what you think the science is, and they were talking about what they think the science is. And I think you just dismiss them because you're like, they haven't done the research. They're just saying whatever they need to do for their social credit. You basically just said so, unless I misunderstood what you're saying.
I would have to go back and listen to the debate, but like all the debates that I had with people, I don't think anybody even cited data that disagreed with my point. I think that because the conversation has gotten more radical to where people are saying that like, okay, well, actually, it is true that trans athletes have an advantage, but that shouldn't matter. Like the boss of like the trans debates, is it Ashley? I don't remember her name. I think she's a friend of that Chloe person. But when she came on to argue with me, she was essentially saying, like, yeah, there is probably some advantage retained, but maybe it shouldn't be a big deal. Like that was her ending thing. So we didn't even have to have a discussion on the data. She agreed with me on the data, but she still disagreed with the final point that it should even matter.
That is what I remember. I was actually about to jump in and say that exact thing, that you guys were both referencing the same data. You thought it was a bigger deal, the difference in trans women's advantage over cis women. You thought it was a bigger deal than the other person did. But all right, so speaking of that debate, for me, what the issue I think, and then I'm going to get into like the broader issue that a lot of people, I guess the perception they have of you, but in that specific debate, it's adjacent to the argument that women aren't, or trans women aren't women, right? Even though we all know that trans, biologically trans women aren't women, but in the society that progressives are trying to create, trans women would be treated the same as women.
But that's not
and
even
to separate
true,
them,
right?
well, how so?
Like, do we want cis women taking like drugs and having like top and bottom like, no, like trans women obviously need a special set of protections, right? Like, I don't like it's
well, no, I'm speaking about socially.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that like this whole conversation of like this saying like trans women are women is so toxic. Like, I can agree with it somewhat on a social level, but then people will take that same statement and morph it into, okay, well then why should it matter if they compete in sports against one another? And it's like, okay, well now the distinction becomes a little bit more important. Like, this is like this is the material of the conversation is yeah, like, well, what are the differences between trans women and cis women? And it seems like now if you've conceded the social position that, well, trans women are women, like, you automatically have to concede that entire conversation. And it's like, well, hold on, that's not how that works.
No, I don't believe that I should be able to just hop into the WNBA and say, okay, I'm a woman now. I do believe there need to be
Which Vivian
safeguards.
does support, by the way. Vivian said that if you identify as a woman, even if you don't do drugs, even if you're not on HRT, you should be able to still compete with cis women. That's a Vivian.
Well, that's batshit crazy.
Sure.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah, I agree.
It is.
Can we not talk about people like that? Like,
No, that statement is batshit crazy.
Actually,
not her.
That's a great bridge. Can we not talk about things that way? That's a great bridge to what I want to talk about. And I'm going to be a little bit more.
I just want to clarify. I do think Vivian is batshit insane, but okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. So,
well, hold on, Soy. I wasn't finished. So you take that rhetoric that we hear a lot of, trans women aren't actually women. We know that, but when it comes to sports,
hold on, I would be careful in that phrasing. I'm sorry, I just have to I wouldn't say trans women aren't actually women. I would say that trans women aren't cis women. I think there's a difference here, is what I would say, right?
Trans women aren't cis women.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I can agree with that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. But when it comes to the sports debate, the advantage, what he was saying was that the advantage, it wasn't enough to separate trans women into a completely different league. There's not enough of them, and that your argument was that most of the trans women competing in sports happens on a high school and a college level, so it would be a lot more, the advantage would be a lot more prevalent in those situations, and that actually wouldn't be a good thing because it would push cis women out of, it would decrease their ability to thrive or be the best at their sport. And so what I was thinking during that debate was that while you might be correct that there is an advantage for trans women, this was the same, and the person you were debating even got this a little bit wrong. But this, like, when it goes back to like the Negro leagues and sports, like, this is the same argument that was used against black people to keep them out of sports with white people. Now, race and gender is not the same thing. I acknowledge that. However, that was the same argument, and now you have black people dominating certain sports, and nobody really has an issue with that. But like I was saying, that is the same argument used against black people to keep them out of, because they knew they thought they knew that there's a certain advantage in terms of with certain sports, especially like basketball or baseball. Or
sure, but like this isn't
football.
Like a good argument, right? Like if I were to say that like I separate, like I'm gonna have like fifth graders competing against fifth graders and not like high schoolers, and somebody's like, well, why? And it's like, well, I think if you're a high schooler, you have a huge competitive edge against a grade schooler. And somebody's like, okay, well, people used to say the same thing about black people. That's not a good argument. I can't use that as a catch-all to say that any two people should be able to compete with any two people, right? Like, there might be some categorizations that like separate people out in valid differences, right? We might be talking about gender separations. We might be talking about weight classes. We might be talking about ages, like pro sports versus recreational leagues.
So how do we have a society in which we accept trans women except for in sports?
I don't
Like,
know. It's really
how do we
rough. It's
do
a
that?
really hard one. I acknowledge that it's really hard, but I don't think an acceptable answer is the destruction of women's sports. I don't think that's an acceptable answer. I don't think that can be the answer. I don't see how anybody believes that that makes for a better
Why
society.
are we framing it like
Wait,
that, though?
hold on.
Because
though.
that's the
Rather
framing.
than, I don't want this to just become a conversation or a debate on trans sports in general. That's conversation has been like beaten and dead. But
Yes.
Soy-section, you definitely had a position you wanted to make earlier regarding, I think, about just the people's candor and the way people carry themselves in sports or something. I mean, in political spaces. Do you get into that real quick?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak, because I'm kind of getting rolled, and I'm actually going to be a little bit more assertive. So I want to be clear about what specifically I have a problem with, why I have a problem with it, and why I think the fact that like discourse on the internet has been getting better doesn't actually matter. Okay. I agree that discourse on the internet is better than it used to be. It used to be a much bigger problem that people on the internet would be like calling each other the N-word or the F-slur, and those people progressively have done that much less. It's still a problem. You go into like a Valorant lobby, you can obviously hear this, but at least on Twitter and at least on Twitch, we see less of it. And I think that's good. And I think the fact that we see less of that is a good thing. The fact that bans can encourage people not to do that is also good. And I think we should and I think unfortunately the tools that we have are pretty blunt, and that we should use those blunt tools. I think in political spaces where what's at stake is like the turnout of like local elections, or more realistically, like the emotional state of like a bunch of people on the internet, and maybe the future state of how they have conversations on the internet, that we have a moral responsibility to be amenable to be affable enough that people can change their opinions, to say things in such a way that people aren't going to become immediately and entirely defensive. And your behavior isn't in line with that principle. So that's why I support your ban. Is that clear?
So just to understand it, so we have a moral responsibility to be nice to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hang on. You can say
fight you on that.
you can fight me on that. I absolutely want to be fought on it. But just to be clear, I want to be clear. I want to do some modeling, I guess, of how this works. So I think that like there's a degree of niceness that we have a responsibility to be. I think if we're looking at somebody and like they insult someone once per year on Twitter, that's not going to cross our like a threshold at which they've been mean enough that we can say it's reasonable to ban them. And obviously, if they insult someone twice a year, that's not enough. Likewise, if somebody calls literally everybody likewise, if somebody like spams pornography at every single person they interact with on the internet, and I'm not saying you do that. If someone spams pornography at every single person they interact with on the internet, we would be totally just in banning them, in part because they're so mean. And if every single time that somebody who was conservative, disagreed with somebody on the internet, they spammed pornography at them, we would have a responsibility to some degree. That person would be like doing something wrong, like actually morally wrong. Now, that means that somewhere, if you agree that the difference here is to some degree related to how mean they were, and that it could be, that it is probably the case that there's a threshold of mean which it's like okay to ban someone, then I think that I guess I think that there has to be some threshold between the 2 points. So I guess what I want to say is that part what I think is true is that you go over the threshold. And I can argue for that using cases, I guess.
Soy-section, Destiny saying that Viv is batshit crazy set you off this much? Like, we can never say that somebody's batshit crazy, even if it's somebody we have a history with and an evaluation of?
Dude, I'm trying really hard to live my principles right now. But Viv was so frustrating for me in that conversation that I had the other day. And I don't like her. I don't care that, I care very little that Destiny insulted her. I'm set off by the fact that, I've been in, 2 panels about this now, and I just got rolled in both of them because I'm way too soy. So I'm just trying to be less soy. Okay.
Wait, so are you engaging with the point or just trying to be less soy?
Wait, what point am I not engaging?
Let the boy live his dream. Let
I
him
feel like-
dream,
I just
damn it.
I don't think we
I
have
feel
a
like you
moral-
went Omega Soy by trying not to be soy by getting upset about somebody
Why?
being called batshit crazy. Like you just went Omega Soy, dude.
Wait, who said that they had a problem with calling Viv, or sorry, who said that they were having this like whole argument because Viv was called batshit crazy once?
It just seems like that's what set you off, man.
Okay, so you're wrong. That's not what set me off.
What set you off?
No, I don't know. I don't understand my psychology to that degree. I just do care about this, and I want to talk about it.
I mean,
Sure.
I agree that we can. I think it's nice. It's like an admirable goal to be nicer to people, but to say that like it's a moral imperative, I think erases. This is going to sound a little bit tippy, but I think it erases a lot of the human experience. I don't know if I'm going to say we have like a moral imperative to be nice to everybody. I don't know if I agree with that.
So I don't
have
think
a
we
different
have.
argument
Wait,
against
no, I'm
that.
not done. Hang on.
Okay.
So
Oof, jeez.
I'm sorry.
You're not nice to me. Ban him.
My
Wait.
bad.
It's
Okay,
time.
but for real, I actually am
Wait,
not
hold
done.
on. Let me interject really quick. Soy, listen. You know you can be assertive and speak your points and like stick to your guns and have convictions without having to get edgy. Like it's no one has a problem with you just like deciding to want to speak up and deciding to want to be aggressive. You can even you just do so, but you don't have to start trying to get edgy to do that. We'll respect you more.
Sorry, it's hard to whatever. It's hard to tell where I'm going too far. Because I'm from like I debated a lot in the old Ask Yourself community, so I sometimes go way off the rails in terms of debate broing. So
He's on a panel with Destiny. To be fair, you know, it's
What's
like,
your fundamental moral axiom, Soy-section?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
nice one, bro. I'm
Don't
the
try to
Don't
fuck out of me.
ask him
is equal to U plus D. Anyway, so where even was I? Oh, right. So I don't think that there's. I'm going to use a really pretentious term here. I don't think there's like some categorical imperative to always be nice to people.
Well, I mean, it
think
seems
that-
like you're kind of arguing for that because you're literally saying if somebody violates this maxim, you want them banned from platforms. No, if
Yeah,
that, I
that's-
mean, if that's not a moral imperative, what is?
Well, well, a moral imperative would be something like that for all situations where we can say that something is happening, that situation is like a bad situation. So, or I think that's like something like what it is. So this is so pretentious. I hate having these like Phil conversations on stream. I feel like such a loser. But like a deontologist might say something like that any situation where in which someone's intention is to stab someone else to death for no not virtuous, they're not going to care about that, for no reason, is going to be like a situation that is wrong, and that'll be like a universal maxim. What I'm saying more is that in general it's wrong not to be nice to people, and that there's a threshold of meanness where it's just obvious that you should be banned, like a point at which it's just really clear one way or the other that you shouldn't be on the platform anymore. And that
Yeah.
place for me
they
exists.
have that already. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We already know that. But Soy, can you just get to what specific places has Destiny crossed that threshold that justifies the ban in your brain?
I think it's on like a holistic. So it's like the subhuman comments. It's the Thanos reality can be whatever I want it to be meme. It's the black. I hate the word digital blackface, but the digital blackface meme. It's the.
Half these things aren't even mean. They're just like edgy jokes. Like who's
Well,
I
they're
being
edgy
mean
jokes.
to with the, who was I being mean to with the digital blackface?
You retweeted someone who was like making some comment about how they disapproved of like your use of the N-word.
My use of the N-word was like using it in quotes with the fucking A about something that somebody said or whatever, like a hypothetical joke.
What they said might be ridiculous, but the point is still that you are antagonizing somebody. That is true. It is inflammatory to them, which was the claim I made.
Anything can be inflammatory to fucking anybody, right? Trans
bad
people
to
are
be bad
inflammatory
destiny.
to conservatives. Like,
Better reason to think will be inflammatory, which is why I said on the whole I have a problem with this behavior. Individual instances I would never use to ban you. The reason I think it's okay to ban you is because taken on the whole, you're the most inflammatory person not the most inflammatory, that's hyperbolic. You're an exceedingly inflammatory person. It's like You tweeted out the R-word children thing to your opposition.
I didn't call anybody a retarded child, to be clear, but go ahead.
I didn't say you called anybody an R-worded child. I said you tweeted out. Okay, that I guess if that implies it. I meant to say that what you did was you tweeted out the R-worded child thing in a way that was directed towards them. So you were retweeting them. I'm not saying that you were calling them R-worded. I've seen the tweet. Like I don't think that. So it's the holistic of these situations that make me feel comfortable with the ban. And like the hour, I think it was like an hour conversation you had where half the conversation was like about the subhuman thing. It's just.
I have a question about that. Do you think that's like platform crossing? So if he's like, let's say he's super mega toxic on Twitter, should he get banned off of Twitch for something that he does on a different platform?
I think that's in the TOS.
No, it's only for extreme shit in the TOS.
Yeah, actually, could you tell me a little bit more about that? You probably would know.
It's like if you're like, I think if you're like doxing or rating or like contributing to a significant amount of harassment.
It's happened in the past for people who've done like sexual assaults and shit.
Yeah, or that stuff like. But I'm not aware of, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if anybody has gotten banned because of like a mean tweet before. I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of Twitch.
Yeah, and
I don't care about the TOS. I just want to know what he thinks.
All right, sorry, Katie.
Yeah, so.
Sorry.
So I think that a thing being off platform gives us reason to think that that thing is going to have like less power in terms of banning someone. I do think that's true. So if I like go onto Discord and I'm like calling everybody, and I'm not saying Destiny does this. Just assume when I run a hypothetical, I'm not saying Destiny does this. If I go onto like Discord and I'm super racist and I'm super sexist or whatever, and I do all of this stuff, and then somebody bans me from Twitch, you know, I don't know if in general I don't think in general it's going to be good to do that. Like if your behavior on Twitch is for the most part fine. I think that there are a few things that make me feel more comfortable about using the Twitch examples, and that's Twitter examples, and that's because the Twitter content bridges onto the Twitch. Like when Destiny tweets something crazy, like inflammatory, it's not just that it stays on Twitter. It's like the next week of conversations are about that, and we'll watch him read like these tweets on stream, and he'll be talking about how he thinks everybody who disagrees with him, not everybody, he thinks that the people who disagree with him about this are subhuman, fuck, R-word, dumb fuck, etc.
Okay,
like,
here I'm curious, okay, because this is like always the meat of the issue. And then Katie, go. Okay, is there an example of me being like actually like hateful, or is it just like me being mean? Like, is there any? Okay, so all of this
that you being mean is hateful. I'm not gonna lie, but
okay. Yeah. Why? Wait, why can't people just not watch?
Why can't people just not watch?
That's not the same question at all, though.
Well, usually like, okay, sure, that is true. That's a different question. But like, let's say somebody is being, I'll say really mean. I don't think I say hateful. We'll say really mean. Like, why can't people just not watch it?
Well, they could.
Okay, why can't that just be the solution? If somebody's mean to you and you don't like them being mean about you or saying mean things about you, just don't watch them.
Well, so for the same reason that like we would say that if someone's like racist on the internet, we would never just tell like all racist people never to watch them and for all black people to just be okay with it.
Yeah, but that's different because like racism is like categorically wrong. We shouldn't be making racist comments.
Would you like me to give an example?
Wait, hang on. That confuses me a lot. When you say categorically wrong, what does that mean?
Like we don't tolerate, whether it's directed at somebody or not, somebody being like actually racist or hateful is like that doesn't have to be directed at a person for us to say like, well, or at least for platforms to say like that shouldn't be on that platform because they don't want hate speech or whatever. But that's different than like, I don't think any platform has ever like banned insults. Like you're not allowed to be mean to people. You're not allowed to insult somebody.
Like I don't know if the platforms are saying something like that they have a categorical problem with racism.
Well, yeah, of course they do. Wait, hold on, they do. It's why it's banned hate speech. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Kitty.
I'm gonna be assertive as well. I'm gonna stand up for my rights and stuff. I think that what you're doing right now is actually playing into Destiny's like whole point, basically. You're arguing for like a super clean, pristine like approach to basically civility politics, to the extent that like if you're mean on Twitch, you're bannable. If you pass a certain threshold on Twitch in terms of your mean like meter, you're bannable. You
yes,
know?
That's exactly what I'm doing. Yep.
Yes, that's not good.
Why?
Why? Because Destiny's whole thing is that there's a bunch of crazy people going around trying to stifle speech and challenging conversations, and they're like interpreting anything in a bad faith way and are being uncharitable. And like, and he argues that that's not good and that he has an issue with it. And then your response is, "You are super mean. I'm cool with you getting banned because you were mean." You're not even like specifying him being like extra racist or extra transphobic. It's
Because
the mean thing.
Yeah, it is the mean thing, because the thing is that when we say that he's transphobic or he's racist or whatever, we have to like invent reality to the fact that we're actually just mad that he's mean. Like, here's the
Wait,
thing.
but when you interpret meanness, that's also inventing reality. Like when he when
No, I'm not
was
inventing anything. Like, the descriptive reality aligns with my view. If you look at him, he's horrifically mean and rude. If you look at his tweets, though, he's not racist. He's not transphobic.
wait, that's up for interpretation. That's
Yeah, you can't be
subjective.
descriptively mean. You can't be descriptively mean, man. That's
you're
an
wrong.
evaluation.
You can evaluate. Okay. Let me try to
Being descriptively mean is going to be hard because that is, by definition, there's going to be a lot of normativity that precedes like what meanness is, right? Like,
Look,
I don't think mean is a
section.
property of the universe. That's going to be like a moral instantiation. If I borrow from the Ask Yourself Discord of debate,
I don't
right?
think
Like,
it has to be. We could say that someone's mean and say that they don't have an obligation to not be mean.
unless we
Like,
want to go like full Sam Harris, there's no way that we can say that mean can be defined in some objective, like descriptive manner that is.
And there's a broader point to this too, where it's like you've specifically mentioned that you want to use very blunt tools to do this, and that's again a very bad take. Like this again opens the door to exactly what Destiny is talking about. If now we're going to start banning people because they pass a certain threshold of mean, the threshold of what being mean is will also change and will continue pushing. So like maybe calling someone stupid right now wouldn't pass the threshold, but if we start banning people for their level of meanness, in 5 years calling someone stupid might be the new threshold, right? Which is exactly what he's saying, and you're playing right into it and giving him exactly what he's talking about.
like 5 degrees. Okay, look. Just because we have some threshold doesn't entail that the threshold will become progressively lower. We have a threshold for racism right now. I think we do. If somebody has like a subconscious racism component to themselves and they're slightly ruder to black people on Twitch, we can observe that fact and say that it's bad and we don't like it. But if Twitch could know that, I don't think they would immediately ban every person who does that. That would probably be like 90% of their platform gone.
Wait,
Look,
but you
so
said
Soy,
that, like,
wait, Soy.
identifying racism is inventing reality.
Soy, can you give us your formula then? What's your
My
formula?
I don't have a formula. We draw arbitrary distinctions like this fairly frequently.
Well, it seems like you have an idea about Destiny, right? So, like, explain how, like, think about his example and then, like, abstract that into a formula that says he's reached the threshold of meanness.
I think what I can do is I can point to like cases that I can show. I think what I can do is I can take cases and give you a rough line that we can kind of run around. But I can't give you the precise line the same way you can't give me the precise line.
Here's like a question, especially when I love that Katie brought up civility politics or whatever. Here's a question. Let's say that somebody is really mean to somebody else because of something they said. Let's say that it's over like, let's say that it's over rape discourse. And let's say that my statements were a lot more careful, but somebody came out and they called me like a subhuman fucking loser that deserves to be like killed or whatever. But let's say that you find out that this person was like a traumatic rape victim. Do you hold them to the same standard as somebody else, that they shouldn't have been able to have that outburst and now they're banned? Or
like I think I might hold them to a slightly lower standard. Maybe,
okay, but like we are like at a mess now for trying to figure out like.
Well, hang on.
And also, you can say a lot of heinous things in a very polite way and not be mean, but they're still heinous.
Just hit me with like a really hard question.
Yeah, I agree. They are hard, but I could think of like a million of these off the top of my head, right? Like, what if we're like in terms of race politics? Anybody who is the affected race is automatically going to get a lot more leeway than people that aren't the affected race. But then you're going to get into like some really weird scenario where I might like, you know, like Fanatiq might say to me like, hey, fuck you, Steven, you're a piece of shit. And I go, well, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. And now I get banned because I'm over the threshold of meanness, but he's not over the threshold of meanness because he's black and maybe I've made like racial comments in the past or something. Like we're going to have to construct like an unbelievably complicated system to account for like all of the points.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree that this might be a reason for us to reduce the complexity of the system. Maybe we say that it's practically impossible to implement like our full desired principle, like a super. And ideally, what we would do is like we'd literally have a principle that would pick out like every single situation before they even happen, and they're like, okay, when Destiny says this one word to this one person in this specific time at 3 blah 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 p.m. on Friday the 15th, we can say in this moment he deserves to be banned, and blah blah blah. In this other set they don't. Ideally, that would be it. Obviously, we can't do that. So obviously, we need to have like some principle. And you might be able to point out that some principles are too complicated to enforce. But that isn't going to get us to the point where we can say that there should be no principle. Likewise, when we have like racial principles against like racism, just because we can complicate them doesn't tell us that we shouldn't have any racial principle. Like, for example, we get into weird situations in real life.
I agree. Fundamentally, what you're saying, like just because a principle might be arbitrarily complicated to enforce doesn't necessarily mean the principle isn't itself real, right? Yes. The answer is yes.
I want to say yes. You use the word real, but I know that's not like whatever.
I think you mean like has value.
Yeah, I don't mean like ontologically or epistemically in the nature of the universe. We talked about
the era stuff before, so my mind was still on.
Sure. But like, so like moving away, I guess, from the memes of like trying to even establish that system, which I think we all agree is probably impossible. I think I would challenge you on the principle that like, I don't think that being mean to people is like a wrong thing. I think it's okay that people are mean to each other. They shout at each other. Like it's part of the human experience. Like, I don't know. I've had family members where we shout at each other when we argue, but like, it's okay. Like people do it. When you play games with people or sports, you get mad at people, you shout at people. When your sports team loses, you shout at people. Like, I think that's all okay. I don't think we have to like eliminate all of this from society to exist. I think we can function with some people being mean, and we don't have to seek to remove all of it because we can't handle it. I think that's a little bit insane.
Yeah.
But that's why...
And I was going to say, and the problem is that people draw the line arbitrarily, like, you know, what is transphobia, what is racism? And when that is the case with platforms drawing the line arbitrarily, then the creators or the participants don't know, and they don't specify where that line is. Like I said, it's arbitrary. Then we get in trouble. How some people interpret Destiny's comments as transphobic when, like, you know, to a large majority of people they're not, but there's still going to be that group of people that do believe that. So setting the threshold at mean, I don't think would move us forward in any way, because then that could be weaponized against anybody that, you know, you disagree with or don't like, or who's, you know, quote unquote mean to you.
I want to respond to what you just said, but the question Destiny asked was harder, where he says it's part of the human experience. So I'll really quickly respond to what you said. All lines that we draw on any platform ever will be arbitrary, and we'll have to decide the boundaries of those principles. Just because we set some arbitrary line principle doesn't mean that the principle is going to be bad. If you just point out that it's arbitrary and say that, oh, because it's arbitrary, people are going to misuse it, that's going to be true of literally every single principle we set on any site ever for literally any reason. And you see people misuse them. You see people misuse the racial principles the anti-racist principles that exist on Twitter. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have them. Now, look,
I think he's arguing something else. So I think he's arguing for the futility of trying to find a consensus definition of what meanness is.
Do we have a consensus definition of what racism is?
Sorry, what?
Wait, yes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Typically, when you're attacking or discriminating against somebody on the characteristic of their race, we call that racism, right?
Sure.
So that's up for interpretation, whether that's what you're doing or you're doing something else.
Well, sure, there's always going to be over individual actions.
Yeah, but if it can be determined that that's what's going on reasonably, then we'll agree that that's a racism.
Okay,
sure.
So, and we say that if you're acting derogatorily towards someone, that's being mean, and then working off that.
Yeah, we always are going to have...
Then we can discuss the validity of whether Vivian is actually crazy or if it is derogatory or not. It's the exact same thing. It's not different.
Okay, I would agree. It is arbitrary, except for in the case of Vivian, she's obviously crazy. But listen, this conversation has been incredibly productive. I appreciate each one of you guys for being willing to have the conversation. Soy, I'm sorry to cut you off right now, but Destiny definitely has somewhere to be at 7:30. And I wanted to make sure that everyone got...
I have a little bit longer. I can stay for like another 35 minutes.
Okay, so look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and wrap up and close here, and then we're going to probably open it up a little bit and let some more guests in to be a little bit more similar to an open panel. If you're willing to be here for that, if not, I totally understand. Everyone else already only just agreed to be part of the Fanatiq show. I am beyond appreciative of each and every one of you guys for being here and being willing to have a conversation. I think all of you guys were as civil as it can possibly be. It did seem like you guys had some disagreement, but we were able to discuss it. This is the dream. I feel like I didn't have to moderate almost at all. And I think part of the moderation was just having the previous conversations with you guys to basically say, this is what's expected and do it yourself. And I think you guys are just as capable. I thought only the nigga panel would be one that would be capable of doing this, but you guys showed that white people can be civil too. So I appreciate you guys for being on the panel. You guys can give your outro.
I'm glad I can show you that white people can be civil too.
No, give your outros. We'll start with thank you so much. The previous conversation we had, you displayed so much intelligence. I really, really appreciated you for just being in space and being willing to have the nuanced take. One more thing I want to say. I tried to get the most anti-Destiny people, but that could actually be civil and actually be intelligent. Unfortunately, like almost every single person that was crazy anti-Destiny was also crazy ridiculous, such that I couldn't even bring them on the platform. And that's really where we're at right now. I don't think that there's a reasonable case for like Destiny's ban. I think Soy was the closest I could get to someone that really strongly felt that he should be banned. And I mean, it's just that there's just no intelligent people on that side, being honest. So this is the best that I could do, but I appreciate you guys for being here. Starting with Katie, go ahead and give your outro, what your final take on this, and where we can find you.
You can find me at that Katie Doe on Twitch. I also have a YouTube, but it's linked to my Twitch. My final take is that I really wish we could have discussed the responsibilities of big streamers, because a lot of what Section was talking about, a lot of what Ray was talking about, has to do with that for me, and I didn't get to touch that enough, and that's unfortunate, but we talked about other things. And I wanted to say that I really disliked Mr. Girl's like transel culture like video, and I want to debate him on what he thinks being Jewish is. So if he's up for it, I'm putting out the call, because I think that was very cringe, and I hate that.
That was a bad video.
He made it actual a couple like I think he said that you can't like change being Jewish. You can become Jewish. I don't know why he said that.
It was pretty cringe on all. It was gross. Yeah, I agree. That.
You're muted, Fanatiq. Still muted.
My bad. There we go. I muted. There's 3 different ways to mute here, and I always fail. Pro streamer. STV Philly, your conversation and mine, it did get a little bit heated, but ultimately I thought it was good, and I appreciate you for being willing to bring your point. It is incredibly nerve-wracking to be in a conversation with one of the bigger streamers and being kind of new to this space, but I respect you for just even attempting to and like kind of expressing your point of view. Please just tell people your final take and where people can find you and all that stuff.
Sure. So STV Philly everywhere, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. My final take is it was billed in the Discord that I was pro Destiny's ban. No, I'm not pro Destiny's ban. I was going to try to get into it with him, ask him why he thinks he was banned, so maybe we could have went off that. But since I don't know, and since he may know, but the general public doesn't know the reason, I can't say that I agree or disagree. However, the points that I was making about his behavior in other ways, it didn't, like I said, it didn't surprise me that it happened. I respect Destiny, everything he's done for Twitch, I guess you could say. I think his community can be toxic. I think he can be toxic. I think, you're right here. I'll say this to you. I think your community could be toxic. I think you could be toxic. I also think you're very intelligent. You have a lot of great things to offer and to say. I just wish you wouldn't let your emotions get the best of you, and the internet basically, get the best of you, which seems like, to me, happens sometimes. But besides that, I have some more contentions, but those are the main ones. Also, I disagreed with you a lot on, I think, I already said that in my opening, but so yeah, I'll leave it there.
There we go. Okay, Rhizome.
Only you and Heem have called me that so far, which is pretty funny. So yeah, I mean, my whole thing is I just don't really understand the imperative that people have in their minds for Twitch or its creators to gear the platform towards having productive political discourse. The incentives that are built into for me, it shows a complete lack of understanding of what Twitch is made for, like what it's incentivized to do. Like it's incentivized to generate traffic. It wants people to stay on the platform. It wants clicks. It tries to get people to be compelled by the content that's on there first and foremost. And I think having spicy political discourse is more compelling than having boring ass circle jerks about what we fucking agree upon. So I don't know. I'm really just into the idea of people getting a little bit more cynical about the potential political outcomes of doing some shit on Twitch. And yeah, I don't know. I'm Rhizome on Twitch, RHYZOHM, and I don't take shit too seriously, as you can tell. And I'm just trying to enjoy this absurd hellhole we've been born into as much as possible before I die.
Appreciate that. Destiny, well, you did say that you could handle, people kind of being critical of you, and you did so as gracefully as I could literally possibly ask. I genuinely can't imagine anyone else being able to handle it in that way. It's not that these were softballs.
I mean, I wanted the Josie and the Viv. I want the real haters and the Maddie cakes or whatever.
I feel you. I would love to have you guys debate. I'm just not going to be the one to moderate that because I'm never interacting with Viv, or I don't know about Josie, maybe, but yeah, I just couldn't have her on the Fanatiq show because both of those people literally can't be civil. They're absolutely ridiculous. I don't think Vivian. I'm not going to go hard. Never mind. But I appreciate you. I genuinely appreciate you. While I do recognize some of the things that you're doing, for example, that lit post. Some of those things are edgy. Once you explain the context, I went from hating you to at least understanding where it was coming from. So you and I both know that it's edgy as freak, but I just sincerely appreciate you for being the person that you are in this platform, for advocating for some of the positions that you do and all of those things, and just being willing to have this conversation and be civil, even on the, just despite the fact that you're being attacked like that. Outro and all that stuff. Do you have one?
No, I'm Destiny, youtube.com/Destiny, and that's where you can find me. And yeah. All
right. And Soy, last but not least, thank you for not being crazy performative and all that nonsense and just actually bringing your points and arguing. I'm sorry we didn't get fully into everything that you wanted to say, but I'm glad that you were able to do so. You got an outro?
Yeah, sure. So I think I want to start by saying, first of all, I want to thank Fanatiq again and the rest of the panel for being on here. I'm really thankful that I got to have the conversation with you guys. Secondly, I think that something that rarely happens at the end of conversations is people are able to admit that when they couldn't defend a position. And at least in this conversation, I failed to defend the position properly. I got tripped up really badly on the racism, the question between the analogy of the racial principal case and the case of a general. The kindness case, the mean case, where it was clear that we could define mean, but not we equally couldn't define what racism was as well as we couldn't define what mean was. So that was an L, and a lot of the rest of the conversation was pretty poorly articulated on my part, and just probably I don't want to say it's wrong yet, but whatever. It was frustrating. I'm still learning how to articulate myself on panel shows. It's hard to mix assertiveness and also mix that together with hearing other people, and it's really challenging when you have an audience. So that's a frustrating component for me. Anyway, I really appreciated the conversation. I really appreciated the time, and yeah, I hope everybody has a good one. I don't have anything to shout out.
Alrighty, and I think that's gonna wrap up this episode. Katie, and everybody else, thank you guys for watching. To the viewers, please hit the like, comment, subscribe, and all that nonsense. The notification bell and all that stuff. Check out my music, Fanatiq. It's everywhere, every platform. Stream twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatiq, Twitter at Mr. Fanatiq. We'll be having more of these episodes, and I will be doing the diligent work of having conversations beforehand to ensure that everybody's not going to be psychos like some of the previous who've kind of ruined these panels. So then Destiny can't intentionally amp them up and make them completely ruin the panel.
Why would I ever do that?
I'm doing that work. Oh, please. You better chill. So either way, we appreciate it. We're going to do the walk-up panel second. And Katie, the main topic, you said you wanted to discuss what responsible platforming with big streamers. Was that?
No, how to control community. I'll stay around for 10 minutes if she wants to do that combo quickly before I have to leave.
Sure. All right, you just go get into it right now. Go ahead.
Really quick.
I'm gonna restream on Twitch.
Omna.
Nice. Okay. Katie, go.
So you're wise beyond your years. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's less about controlling a community. I think obviously the fact that you're not willing to like be nice and shit like that would obviously influence the more radical parts of your community. I don't think you would contest that there aren't people from your community that have harassed, but I also don't think
We need
there's
to. So before we get into this conversation, I think we need to be very careful about what do we define as harassment, because I don't think I agree with everybody. What do you define as harassment?
Wait 1 second. I'm gonna move us all to a different room really quick. But go ahead. You guys can keep talking. Go ahead.
I do think like if you get a letter telling you to go kill yourself, it's harassment.
I agree with
Do
that.
I think it's yeah. On that.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Hold on, wait. I was getting dragged around, and my brain is schizo-posting because of all these sounds in my ear.
I'm glad that we agree on that. I do think it's harassment. Do I think it's
I just want to be really clear, real quick about the framing of this conversation. So when I interact with people like Maddie, Cakes, and Josie or whatever, here's a question: if somebody DMs you or if somebody tweets at you and they say like you're a fucking idiot, do you think that's harassment?
No, I think that's not fun.
Okay, when I'm interacting with people, the vast majority of the harassment that people are complaining about are tweets like that, are people calling them like a fucking idiot or a dumb fuck.
Okay, but just saying that's not really what I want to talk about, right?
Okay,
so
we can.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, I'm sorry, and then I'll let you go as long as you want. We can talk about the other forms of harassment if you want. That's fine, but I just want it to be known that that type of harassment is unbelievably rare coming out of my community. Like, there will be people that will get one or two of those DMs, but every single time we've reached out and asked people for like lists of anything, like very rarely do they ever respond. I shouldn't say every single time. Most of the time they don't respond. And usually when people do respond, when I go and look at these accounts, they're like 0 follower accounts that follow like me and like Nick Fuentes. It very rarely is it people. Or like sometimes you'll get people, I think I saw, who posted this recently? I think it might have been Josie who posted a tweet and the person was like, kill yourself. You're so fucking horrible, you dumb bitch. DGG for life. Like, really? Do you really think that's somebody in my community doing that? Like, it's almost comically false flaggy. So if you want to talk about like the more serious threats, I can agree that we can talk about that, but I don't want it to be framed as though like a ton of these comments come from my community. They don't. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, okay, go ahead.
So
I'm gonna head out, you guys. I just want to say bye. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rhizome.
Take it easy.
Rhizome. Peace out.
See you later.